Hi, Leila. Okay, our speaker today is going to be Second Vice President Doug Siemens. The agenda stated that Andy will be here, but Doug and Andy switched because of some conflict in the schedule. So Andy will be here in January 31st. Doug?
Okay, well, for those of you who are expecting Andy's smiling face, I apologize.
Yeah, you have a nice smile.
We're going to get Doug's dry humor.
Sorry for the downgrade.
We'll give him a glass of water.
But Andy will be here later this month, so if anybody has any questions, just hold them for Andy. I think maybe what I should do is just go through the flash report a bit and
Unfortunately.
kind of freely associate with other topics. I'll skip the approval of the minutes. The second thing, the second section, of course, of these board meetings, we always go through the management report. As a footnote, I must say Cooper Square always develops a really organized management report for the board meetings. It's a very professionally done presentation that guides our board meetings. The first item was about the storm hardening update. Management says that they are on top of all the apartments that reported storm damage. We have emphasized to Russell many times that these things had to be taken care of. I know there were some agonizing periods after Irene, long after Irene, getting repairs done, but management tells us that they are on top of it with the exceptions that are listed here. Some people whose repairs are on hold because some people don't want to do it yet, or they are involved in balcony drain repairs. Two which are currently scheduled and haven't been completed, and one reimbursement request still pending. Sorry, can't hear me?
That's what I'm asking. Can you only hear me?
Okay.
Yeah? Over there? Okay, go ahead.
And do you want to? This next item was about the building 6. As you may know, there was some electrical meter problems which led to estimated bills of building 6. Russell's been working on this and now says that the problem's repaired and everybody at building 6 is getting actual readings. Next item was the garbage solution. There's been a lot of talk about this over the years and recently, most of it I think in committee, but we are moving toward the position that the garbage container, that's not totally the correct term, but the thing that we develop is going to have to be here in the corner of Amsterdam and LaSalle. I know that the committee has been, Systems Instructors has had meetings with sanitation and discussed, among other things, location. And although there hasn't been a formal presentation on this yet to the board, what we have been led to understand is that it has to go in that corner because of the curb cut which exists there and the need for the sanitation truck to back in there to pick up from the container. That will be discussed in more detail when we actually get a proposal and a specific reference, a specific referral on what to do from systems instructors. The next thing at the top of page 2 is capital projects. These are all amendments to the local law 11 contract or the BREN contract. These are all things these are all additional items which have been vetted by our architect and added to the BREN contract at the prices that he's gave. although I'm not personally familiar with the details of each one of these repairs, we did discuss, and I do know that this, as always, these are all additions which are vetted by cuts of George, Tuman, and Allen before they are voted on by the board. The next thing, committee reports. And the first item there is policy and house rules. For some time, we've been discussing the problem that there are repeated violations of our house rules around the grounds, sometimes involving dogs, sometimes involving feeding squirrels, feeding birds. There's all kind of things that go on, which is a policy we have said we're not going to do or we're not going to allow. And the question that has always been unanswered really is, well, how do you enforce that? It's unlikely that you're going to evict somebody for feeding the squirrels, but we do want to discourage that for obvious reasons. So we've come around to the decision now to levy what we're calling administrative fees, and security will be authorized to, in essence, issue tickets. We have not determined specific amounts of fines for specific violations, but we've asked the Policy and House Rules Committee to go back and come up with specific fines for specific times. And then we'll be telling people, you can't pay the fine, don't do the fine. Yeah.
Questions about that?
Let's wait for the end.
Oh, okay.
What are your
Sure.
questions?
As you wish, Dr. Sure.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Breaking our pace there. Next thing was from the Amenities Committee. We raised the fees on trunk storage. For those who were following that. I don't know what it is, but I don't know what it was, but it appears to still be a bargain. That committee is also trying to take a look at what's the relationship between the people who are paying for bike storage and the bikes which are actually in bike storage. And that's an ambitious project, but they intend to take a look at that correlation, and they're gathering data from management to try to see if those two things have any relationship to each other. Next thing is about the workshop. I think we previously set membership fees and all that stuff, and we now are adding into that arrangement that members will be able to get a locker at a set price, and I think it's one locker per member and the people in the same household, right? It's one locker per household. All those fees are billed by the corporation and are going to be collected on the maintenance bill, I believe. Next thing is was the treasurer's report. The items of interest there really are that the last this is as of November 30th. The last financial report that we got at the Finance Committee meeting showed a very large positive variance, as they say. In other words, we were up a lot of money compared to our budget figures. But Russell pointed out that our fuel expenses for November were apparently not, he didn't think they were properly billed or fully billed. So he was projecting another very large figure that should that we will eventually pay for November fuel. So if you take Russell's estimated additional fuel costs, what the fuel should have been, it means that as compared to our budget, we're still about $196,000 ahead. That positive variance means variance with our budget. I don't think this is on here, but the other figure that was in the November income statement was our net operating income, and we were about, as of November 30th, we were about $120,000 in the black. In other words, where our income was exceeding our expenses by about $120,000. Those figures they're certainly positive, they sound good, but, you know, of course, all these financial figures are, at least many of them are sort of illusory, because we prepare these statements are prepared on a cash basis, but at some point the auditor comes in and moves expenses into the correct month, and what you thought was extra money sometimes disappears, particularly year-end money. So, you know, on a cash basis, we seem to be ahead at the moment, but when everything is moved into its correct time period, those will probably turn out to be not really surpluses. Andy also pointed out at our meeting that of the maintenance increase of 4.4%, which we had recently, 3.8 of it was attributable to increases in taxes. Our monthly financial reports have a list of all these tax charges. There's water and sewer, there's real estate taxes, there's corporate taxes. All the various taxes we pay, or almost all of them, not all of them, but almost all of them, are projected to go up in the next year. And there was about $500,000 in projected increased taxes for next year, which accounts for, which in itself would be a 3.8% maintenance increase. So Andy was pointing out at the meeting, and the flash report reflects that only 0.6% of the maintenance increase that we have had last year is in any sense discretionary. These tax charges are completely beyond our control. Although of course, we file a challenge every year to our real estate taxes, but you know, so does every other building in the city, and it's all just part of a big process that rolls on year after year. But it certainly, this is a point worth noting, is that in terms of creating a budget, there are fixed charges that we can't control, and those charges are increased on bases that we can't control, and that's what makes up most of the increase that we pay year after year. Under the President's report, we are starting to take a look at the long languishing exhaust fan project. And as was reported at the board meeting, and as the flash report indicates, we're going to take an experimental first step by lowering the camera into the, what is it, the stack? What do you call it, stack?
Yes.
Into the shaft, and going down to take a look at what's in the shaft and what's blocking that shaft, and what will have to be removed as part of getting working exhaust fans. I think the idea is that if we're able to make enough of a determination from the use of this camera to make some decisions about work to be done, then we will be using that throughout to look at all the shafts to see what has to be done. But we start with an experimental test to see if this is gonna work. Exterior lighting design. We got bids on this, they were opened. These have not really come to the board yet, but will soon. Larry noted that Andrea deserves thanks for this is work she's doing on the spreadsheet. This is really the like indexing of the minutes, right?
All the motions that you pass.
Oh, just motions, okay. And lastly, Larry noted thanks to Nick Dorada, who reported that the exterior lights were out on 123rd Street. Actually, I didn't see this, but I guess the security also put flashlights along there when that light went out. When those lights went out. And that's roughly what happened, so.
Okay,
Maybe if there's
Questions?
some. Yes, sir.
go ahead.
Question,
I can do it.
process with respect to the fines and tickets or whatever. Security's gonna hand out, was there any discussion of what happens when a person who may or may not be a shareholder says, in answer to the question, what's your name? None of your business. How do we deal with that kind of situation? Huh? That,
We have not talked about that.
okay, just curious.
You have a suggestion?
Cattle prod? I heard cattle prod over here. That was Yvonne.
I'm a board member.
No, I don't know, that's an interesting question, but I don't know what we would do.
Oh, sure.
It's very easy to find, cameras, it's fine.
I saw you, Marie, yesterday.
It's true.
Let's go.
Octavo, very good.
Let me finish this one. Okay, Marie?
No, I have another question.
I'm sorry? Oh, you had a answer already?
Somebody else asked a question.
The question was?
I was just
That the cameras would.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, okay. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, go ahead,
Sure,
Auntie.
once. One has to do with the shop. It's probably assumed that it is too narrow. Has that anything to do with the possibility of putting the vents in? Sure. The shop, yeah.
Assume that it's too narrow for what? You mean, is that, you mean
The
what,
vents to
you
operate.
mean why we're using a camera?
Yeah.
As opposed to having somebody
Crawl down.
dive down there? I don't know, actually, I don't know, I think the idea is to look for obstructions
That's it.
in the shaft. And other than using a camera, I'm not sure what you would do. I suppose you could try to, can you look from, can you take out the, no.
There's no access. Me, I wouldn't fit.
Actually,
Switch.
Can I offer something that was said at the meeting, it's not captured in the flash report, but what was said that why this experiment is different than anything done before with cameras, is that the idea is to have pictures that the engineers can then diagnose. So that's the idea, that they'll capture the pictures to see what's there, and the idea is then, either at that same time or at a later time, the engineers will have a chance to diagnose.
okay, actually, if I may, they have actually done for building, they have already done the cameras in building one, the D line. They've done it already, since the report, because I live on
I think it's not only obstructions, but there are these scoops
scoop,
that,
yeah.
the scoops that should be there at each vent, and if they're missing, you can put the biggest fan and the strongest fan up on the roof, and it won't, the suction won't work. So they have to see if they're missing, and if they're missing, those pieces will have to be replaced. and then there could be obstructions as well.
For those of you that don't quite know what it's all about, we are supposed to have working vents in the bathroom. And we have been having problems with them. So they did put in new fans on the D line in building 1. And they found out when they put it in that some apartments still were not vented well enough. So I know it because I broke my bathroom wall to see what's going on. And now they can't really need to break the bathroom wall in every apartment. We have 982 of them. So the way to do it is to run a camera from the top all the way to the bottom, the whole 21 floor, and see if there are any obstruction. And there are scoops that are built inside, so there is the right amount of power or pressure or suction happens on each floor. Otherwise, you'll be flying away on the 21st floor and you get nothing on the first floor. And they think there might be a problem with the scoops. Some apartments might not have them. So the only way to get around finding out, short of sending somebody down and it's impossible, it's too narrow, is to send a camera. And they started doing it already in building 1. They've gone it through. Now they did this one to begin with because this line had a new fan installed a couple of years ago. So they have a sense already of what's going on in this building, and they know already which apartment were okay and which one they had to break the wall to do something about it. So that basically summarizes the whole story of the fan. Yes, Marie?
I'm wondering, a couple of years ago, maybe longer, there was some cleaning out done, but from the look of my bathtub after the latest windy days, I would gather there's been a lot of accumulation of soot and
Yes.
whatnot.
Yes.
Will that need to be cleaned again before the fan, or will the fan correct that?
I really
Remains to be
don't
seen.
answer. I don't know. I assume that it will probably be cleaner, but I really don't know.
Right, thank you.
Yes, Mike?
Part of the problem that's been discussed is that there have been a fair number of renovations of bathrooms. And the concern is that in the course of renovating bathrooms, number one, these scoops which provide graduated pressure or graduated resistance as you go down into the building so that lower apartments get the proper suction and the upper apartments are limited in the amount of suction they receive, have been removed. And in addition, the concern is that some of the shafts have been blocked up by debris resulting from these renovations. And so this is also part of the examination of what we hope to find out through this examination and then begin to know what needs to be done in any given shaft. And I think every shaft is going to be a separate adventure.
Yeah, just because some people, I know, I was living in building 3 before.
Right.
And, yeah, and someone in, of course I won't mention names, was in that building is asking me, you know, if they could just close up the event altogether. You know, so I said that'll be unhealthy and probably illegal. But, you know, now you're talking about maybe some people did things like that. I don't know how that would affect the suction.
That seems to be a possibility. We don't know yet.
Well, I can tell you that I closed off my vent for quite some time because there was a reverse movement.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever there was wind, my bathroom became dead, black.
Yeah, I had the same thing, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Marsha.
I'm having an apartment renovated, and I recently had a chance to look in at the scoop in the bathroom. Yes, there is one in my apartment. And I think there was, what is it now, 60-some years of dust accumulated there. The whole air could go through was about so big, and after it was vacuumed out and cleaned, you know, there's a space like this. Now, if you wonder where is the debris coming from, I was kind of horrified by what had been allowed to accumulate for a lot of years.
So maybe a blockage.
Yeah, well, you know, dust, and the dust was just packed against the sides.
Yeah,
This was
that's what
not
happens.
loose, fluffy dust. This was dead dust.
We renovated in 2007, but with local law 11 and all the work.
Oh, yeah.
And that really clogged up our head. You can also take your grill off and vacuum in there.
Yeah, she
That was
did.
what, yeah, was what was done, yeah.
I'm Danny Freeman, Building 3. I noticed that a few months ago, or maybe 5 months ago, our bathroom, it wasn't blowing at all. It wasn't sucking in anything. Wasn't nothing. All of a sudden, about 2 months ago, it started again. It reverted to the way it should function. And every once in a while, over the years, there's been a sort of like, I don't know if they've done something to it. All of a sudden, everything gets pumped out, and I know there's debris in there, in my own, but I don't I mean, it may not be important, but the fact is, it was not working for a while, and all of a sudden, it started working again.
Oh, yes, Marty, go ahead.
Can I ask the next question?
Yes, you may.
Okay. I have two questions more.
Okay.
One has to do with the taxes. All our taxes to be paid for the operating budget,
Yes.
all of it.
Yeah, I believe so. I guess it's possible that we might pay some sales tax on
But that's mine.
some items that are used in capital projects. But in our budget, the things that we call taxes are all out of operating.
And can I ask the
Yes,
next
sure,
one?
go ahead.
That line includes water and sewer, which is a kind of tax.
And, yeah, the exterior lighting design, you said that the bids for the design of the new exterior lighting were open today. So my question is concerning the design. All we have to renovate the exterior is $2.5 million. So how much can you spend alone on the design phase? I mean,
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, obviously, we gotta try to stay within the budget, and we gotta see what these bids are, but
yeah.
I actually have no idea what kind of figure they're
Yeah.
coming in.
Michael,
Maybe somebody
My
does.
question, of course, is concerning the $2.5 million we have, which is not enough at all to do
It's only
anything.
2 million, by the way.
2 million?
Thank you
2
all
million.
the time.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Monty, let me answer part of your question.
Michael.
Without going.
Michael is, for those who don't know, Michael is a member of the System and Structure Committee and is actively involved in dealing with the outdoor lighting.
Exterior lighting, yeah. Without getting too specific, it would appear as if the cost of design is going to be in the mid 5-figure to high 5-figure range, maybe going into 6 figures for the design process, leading to a set of documents from which we can hire a contractor or do the work in-house. So that's the kind of cost we're looking at with respect
What
to
is the
design.
proportion?
Pardon?
What is the proportion?
It's mid to high 5 figures would be a fair estimate at this point.
And actually, the budget is $75,000 for outdoor lighting.
For design.
The budget that was approved by the board
Yeah.
on July 24,
Yes.
2011, had $75,000 for outdoor lighting.
Including fixtures?
$75,000 for outdoor lighting, period.
Have you got it? No, never, I won't say it.
I'm working on the budget, I'm telling you, yes, I just looked at it.
That's all right.
Okay,
You know,
yes,
Just in the, I just walked down the steps from building 1, and it was so dark, I almost stumbled down the steps.
is one of the lights off?
I don't know what it was.
Okay, on the way back, I'll check it out,
Yeah.
to make sure. If the light is out,
Our
we'll
staff
report.
has been charged with putting up temporary exterior lighting to cover that situation as the scaffold comes down. That's something that we'll have to talk to Russell about and to the custodial staff. But that's how that's gonna get done. That's not part of the final permanent exterior lighting project.
Any other issues?
But that's something that has to be taken care of immediately.
You're
Yes.
absolutely right.
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Yes, and Jackson. Yes,
Building 3, I'm at eye level with the ground,
yes.
and I see the same people day after day coming out of Building 5, toileting their dogs, deliberately. They're off the leashes. I'm saying that to say, I hope we adhere to the administrative fees for this kind of indiscretion. I think it's disgraceful. That's number one. Comment.
Yeah.
I have a question about the scaffolding coming down, the work being completed on the building. And early on, when the work started, we were told, and I'm certain it's in writing, that we would get a roof price on new air conditioners. Yes. And if we only wanted our air conditioners clean because of all the dust, the management would not be responsible, because that might not work. Number one. Number two, the company, I don't know the name of it, stated they would wash all the windows
Brent, yes,
outside.
yes.
And I would hope that the board sees that this action is properly taken.
I can tell you that they did wash the windows in building 1 and building 2. Right, Alan? They washed them.
Two.
Yeah, not 2.
What?
Not two,
Not
yeah.
2.
In building 6, they did.
No, they did building 2.
They did building 2.
Yeah.
None of just me. Well, then maybe not on
I
the
think
floor.
we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Windows don't
Still got scaffolding.
Just about.
Because they didn't have a scaffolding up anymore.
So the answer is, as far as I know, they've done it before, so I assume it will work. But I guess Doug is writing down, let's find out.
Yeah, I don't remember the discussion about air conditioners. You're talking about it at the, once the building's
Once all the work
completely
is
done with.
finished, completed, then management was going to order air conditioners. And of course, we pay for them, but we would get a better price because of the roofing.
Now when Mike was here.
This was on the theory that the work would have done some damage to the air conditioners from all the dust and debris and stuff.
Yeah, that was when Mike was here.
Yeah, okay, Alan.
About the air conditioners, I'm sure that might have been said, but I know that it was never voted by the board and is not part of the contract. So it's something we could ask for now. A group, if you're talking about a group price, we've already had, we already buy air conditioners at a group price, and so we should, maybe we could buy more and get an even better price.
It's a matter of record.
Yes, Gwen.
I gather we're discussing our concerns about various things here. Many of us are having real problems with heat. I know people like myself. I have had erratic heat for the 18 years I live here. And my neighbors are freezing. We have contacted management, and Mr. Gerbino or Gerbino, however it's
Gerbino.
pronounced, he's coming to my apartment tomorrow. Of course, he'll come when there's heat. Not when the pipes are freezing.
When you go to
They
the
always
doctor,
do.
you always feel better, right?
Yeah,
That's sexy.
But I'm concerned that
there is something still structurally wrong with our heating system. I'm wondering, and a couple of my neighbors said the same thing, if it would behoove, probably not, the corporation to take a survey of who's having heat problems, see where it is, what, you know, what can be done. I was hoping after the chimney and the other adjustments that things would be okay. And they certainly aren't in my apartment. Right now, it was comfortable when I left. When I get home, it'll probably be freezing. And my neighbors are freezing most of the time. I don't know whether anyone knows anything about this and what's underfoot to.
What do you think?
Building 2.
Well, first of all, Russell and the board do receive periodic letters from people saying that they have inadequate heat.
Or have too much, some people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, certainly, I mean, in my apartment, we have always had too much heat. We keep the windows open.
Mm-hmm.
A very efficient use of fuel. But we have, the board has told Russell to check these things out as the complaints are made one by one. There's the BMS, this system that we're supposed to have to regulate the heat, I guess suffered something of a setback when we had to go on the temporary heating system. So, you know, this is something we've talked to Russell about, of getting this so-called BMS system back up to
I remember that.
correct operating. I think it is not, when we last discussed this, Russell said it was not yet back to correct operation, although it's something we continue to work on. You know, this is a debate which goes on in a lot of buildings. I've heard some engineers say, you can do whatever you want, you can say whatever you want, you can spend whatever you want, you will never get uniform heating throughout high-rise buildings. I don't know. We have also had the experience of having people complain that they're not getting adequate heat, and Russell was sent someone to inspect, and we found that in one particular instance, the person who was complaining of lack of heat had completely insulated the baseboard heating with some sort of wooden design, you know, some sort of seating system or something, and you know, just didn't make the connection that I'm not getting heat because it's enclosed. I mean, it's, you know, it seems silly, but that's part of it also. There's also something of a subjective factor when it comes to heat and cold. You know, you can record a temperature and say, okay, we're shooting for 68, we're shooting for 70, or whatever it is. To some people, 68 is cold, and some people it's warm, to some people it's just right. But we have asked Russell to investigate the complaints and take temperatures.
Yeah. Well, those thermometers are weird, but when workers, because they do respond promptly when I call and yell help. I'm not talking about faint heat. I'm talking about ice cold pipes and nothing coming from the radiator. And even some of the workers have come in and they said, walk in and say, God, it's cold in here. But the thermometer says 73, 72. It's really frustrating. You know, we're not talking about faint heat. I'm talking about no heat. And yes, sometimes it's faint and I'd like it more, but we're talking about ice cold pipes.
Which apartment are you in?
H. 2H.
Second floor, right?
Yes. And Gabrina's coming tomorrow, but
Jenny and then you.
We had an experience after they switched over to the new chimney. There was a dramatic change. Prior to that, for a long period, and even before the temporary boilers, but certainly during the temporary boilers, it was overheated, all rooms. We had, I mean, it was bad because we had to open the windows, which is obviously a waste.
Right, no waste.
Then the last, 3 weeks or something, I noticed a dramatic change. It was way down. The radiators were like warm, just enough. But before New Year's Eve, 2 days, I noticed out of the 3 rooms, we have 2 bedrooms, right? The living room had no heat, period. Nothing was hot. There was the pipe or the radiator. Not that it was so cold in the house, but I said to myself, this hadn't been that way, and there's something abnormal about it. Because the other 2 rooms, the bedrooms, it was fine. So before New Year's late afternoon, before New Year's Eve, Angelo from our building 3 came up, he had a thermometer, the whole thing, technologically modern, and recorded the different rooms. And he said, well, you know, you're above, even in a room where there was no heat, no functioning, no cold radiator, he said, well, you're still above the legal limit. I wasn't so much complaining as letting them know that this was not normal functioning. Now, as someone said, subjectivity enters it. Well, the point is, that's why he has the thermometer. We got to try to have some objective measurement, because people do have different experiences, but you can't go by it. You have to have some sort of measurement. He said he's nothing he can do. They'll investigate it. That it's all controlled by computer, etc. So it seems to be back, you know, a little bit. So. I don't know what else. I just reported the experience.
Okay, now, Marcia, Andrea, and then we are moving on. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right, it's all right.
You were before, go ahead.
I just wanted to know if anybody can tell me why sensors are perpendicular to the ceiling where the heat is all the time. Heat rises and the sensor is at the ceiling. I don't get that.
That's true. That's a good
question.
And that has bothered me a long time, but I never asked that question. So what's the point of it?
Right.
Good point. Okay. Just a minute. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say one of my neighbors has been ill and injured, Sue Johnson. And Meryl, you've been in her apartment.
Sue Miles.
I'm sorry, I malapropped so badly, so forgive me again, Sue Miles. Sue, her bedroom, I have never felt a touch of heat in her bedroom. It's, the kitchen is blasting away, full heat ahead. It is not right.
Yeah. Yes, and then Angelo came and Marcia came. The pipe cold, just cold. And he wrote up a report. I said, I'm not going to sign that. This is not true. Say 70 cents, whatever it be. Pipe is cold, no heat whatsoever. And she's 87 years old. No heat. That is in this building, 5A.
I think we can say. Okay.
5A.
5A.
Okay. Andrea?
I would just say what I've learned listening to things at board meetings about the heat, which is, again, it's very subjective about what's comfortable for different people, even if the temperature is the same, but that the heat is not designed to be constantly on, so even though you touch the pipe or the heater and there's no heat, it doesn't mean that sometime prior or subsequent there will be heat. So that's just one thing to consider. It doesn't run 24 hours pumping that heat.
I know
and I
that.
suspect that possibly the case in building 3, why it was warm and then it changed, is probably maybe they were putting up more heat because the temporary roof wasn't done. So in order, this is based on what I hear at board meetings, so that in order to ensure the top floors were not cold because they didn't have sufficient insulation, my thought is maybe in building 3 they were pumping out more heat so to get up to the top, and then once that, I forgot, temporary or permanent insulation building 3 is complete, they were able to moderate the heat. Just a guess.
Okay. Lottie and Betty, and we are going on. Go ahead,
My
Lottie.
apartment is changing. It is maybe half an hour warm and 3 hours cold.
Okay.
And then at night, the bedroom is heated from 12 o'clock on throughout the night. And so I have to sleep with an open window.
Okay, so we know that heat is still a problem.
I think the
There's bottom line.
thermostats can't do it.
suppose the BMS system had too long a vacation and now it needs to go up. It's like, you have a car, you don't drive it for a year, guess what? That's what, okay. And on this cheerful note, I'd like to introduce Alan Mellon, a former president for 2 terms.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
thank you very much, sir. And actually, you were chair of MGCA at one point, weren't you, Alan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You was everything.
not quite everything.
Well,
I guess I'll come up here so I can be
Yeah.
heard.
Go ahead. You want to come here?
I'll come over.
Thank you very much, sir.
I made a mistake the other day. I ran into Tova on the center walk, and I said, somebody ought to remember the fact that we had 2 former presidents die this past year. And she said to me, well, you brought it up, so you ought to be the one to remember it. So there's a lesson in that.
Don't talk to me.
I came here in 1975, well, December of 74, and Joe Inarola was president. But after I became president in about 1980, I was president from 83, 4, and 5, I think, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
I learned that there were people who had been president before Joe Inarola, and one of them was Gus Archilla. Now, Gus was also very instrumental in founding MGTCC, the predecessor of MGCA, and I wanted to do some research on this today, but it turned out that the board office wasn't available to me because Donna is having physical therapy this afternoon. And so, being a former school teacher, I'm just going to wing it based on what I know about Gus. Then I'll tell you about Harold later. This place, as many of you know, was founded by the institutions on the Heights. And the original board was people who didn't live here. And the bylaws originally were drafted, the bylaws that we just had to overturn, giving MGCA the right to appoint members of the bylaws committee, were part of a drive to give the stockholders power over these outside people who were running the place. And MGTCC was also founded for that same purpose, to give the stockholders the power. And now, of course, the stockholders have the power, and this body serves a different kind of function. Although it wasn't until quite recently that we amended the bylaws to say nobody who wasn't a stockholder can be on the board. 09, yes, quite recently. I don't remember too much about that. Well, I wasn't here that part of when Gus was actively involved in both MGTCC and on the board. I do know that when I was here I was actually active in MGTCC at the time, and in 78 and 79, he was on the bylaws committee, and they presented a whole pack of bylaws that the board was against, because they were bylaws that were effectively saying that the board couldn't do certain things without stockholder approval, which I think was legal, because we weren't a business corporation at that point. As a co-op, we could have done it, but there was a tremendous resistance. As I listened to the conversation here about heat, I realized the more it changes, the more it stays the same. We've had these conversations about heat at least as long as I can remember. And one of the problems is that it's the design of the system. And the BMS was supposed to make changes in that design, and I have great faith that it will, but it hasn't yet.
Actually, 1 year it will.
But it was
Just
only,
but before-
but it was only in one building.
No, it was everywhere.
Oh, but they,
Just before
they
we-
put it online just before they had to.
Local 11.
Yes, well, it wasn't.
Yes, yes,
It
it all
was
went,
the boiler, yeah.
it all went online before local 11
Yeah,
started.
but it wasn't local law 11 that stopped it, it was the fact that they had
The
that
chimney.
temporary.
The chimney, right.
Well, the chimney and the
Right.
temporary boiler, both. And anyway, so we used to have fights too.
We used to.
Yes, we did. We've always had
You're
fights,
kidding.
in other words. When I was president of this corporation in 1984 or 5, whatever my last year, we were slapped with a $5 million lawsuit by 3 stockholders that other people signed on to. Who were the 3 stockholders? Gus, Elmer, and the beloved Frances Goldstein. She was, and they were a wonderful group, and they thought we had done something that we couldn't, that we had not done something which we actually had, because we raised maintenance. In those days, you had to get the approval of the city to raise maintenance, and we had gotten the approval of the city for a 25% increase.
What year did you say this was?
The lawsuit?
Yes, I think it was earlier.
No, this lawsuit was in 1980.
Oh, was there another one earlier?
There might have been. I don't know.
yes.
I was only here in 1975,
Okay,
so I don't remember what happened before 1975.
Gus was involved in an early one, because my father had been very friendly with Gus, extremely. This is going back in the 70s. And all of a sudden, I didn't live here. All of a sudden, there's this terrible acrimony. And my father is, he had a few problems, one of which he held a grudge. And it lasted and lasted for quite a few years, I'm sorry to say, until my mother died, and Gus came and paid his respects to my father, and they sort of patched things up. But it goes back. Okay. I just want to.
Well, I have to say that
speak ill of the dead. But,
I don't think it's ill. Gus was.
No, listen.
He's a great guy.
Right.
And if he'd been right, it would have been wonderful. But he wasn't.
The corporation.
What happened in this? It got thrown out because it had no merit, and the judge rebuked the lawyer, who was obviously one of these ambulance chaser lawyers, who took the case because he should have known at the beginning that they didn't have a case, and he just did it for the money. But it took a while. It wasn't until Mary Thompson was president that it got settled. And somehow or other, during that whole period, I don't know that Elmer was ever involved in governance here, but Gus was not. He wasn't really involved in anything, except he got terribly involved in MRHS in a social way, which was really good. And the last thing I want to say about Gus is, of course, that everybody knew that Gus and Elmer were a couple, but it wasn't until 2003 that they actually came out in a huge way, because this obituary that appeared in the New York Times on December 26th is actually copied from a story which was on the front page of what is now the Metropolitan section of the New York Times in 2003, the year that they eloped to Canada as soon as they possibly could, and then became the poster boys for same-sex marriage to the same-sex marriage industry in New York, or these partners, because they were domestic partnerships. They got a free ride down Fifth Avenue, every gay pride parade, in a very fancy car every year, until, I don't think the last year before they moved to Florida they could do it, but because Gus's health was getting bad, and that's why they moved. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, but in particular to remember him because he was president, because being president is a hard job, right, Nova?
Yeah.
Now, the other person I want to remember is Harold Landon. And Harold was on the board for 4 years. He was I didn't have to go to the board office to research this because I had copies of the news and minutes that date back to when I came here, so I could do this research. He was elected to the board. I don't have a copy of this, but that was an acrimonious election in 1990. And again, there was a wonderful satirical piece that was put out by Francis Goldstein about called Harold. It named every candidate for the board. It called them an animal, and it called Harold a horse, which was very appropriate because he had a horse face, and he had sort of had a hoarse voice too. I don't mean, I mean sort of a whinny kind of voice. He was elected to the board. He'd been chair of the, or headmaster of the Cathedral Day School for years and years, and he was immediately elected secretary. And so, you know something about that, Ron, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what happened the following year. He got elected president. But he was only president for 1 year, and then he went back to being secretary again. Well, I've been through that route too, although not consecutively. I mean, I was not. I was secretary on my second time around in the board, and on the end of my third time around. So I've been there. I was going to say something about that time. That was a difficult time because we knew we were coming to the end of our tax abatement, and we were gearing up to either apply for an extension like, we couldn't apply for an extension because we'd already made the decision not to apply for an extension. So we had to reconstitute. And at the very same time, the tenure of our general manager, who it turns out, in retrospect, wasn't as great as we thought he was,
Who was that?
Frank Tomasulo, was coming to an end because he was nearing retirement. The reason it wasn't so great as we thought it was his approach to maintenance would have got him killed if he did it on his car on the highway, because he didn't fix things until they were broke. And
We are paying for it.
we are paying for it even now.
That's right.
I'm not going to make any political speeches except to say we didn't borrow enough money this time either. The last time we didn't borrow enough money, and this time we didn't borrow enough money. And I don't know what these two guys would have thought of it. I understand that Roland is going to show
Yeah.
at some point an interview with.
Okay, yes,
Just Harold made it to 100.
right.
Yes.
And his family gave him a very nice open house party in Building 2 about 2 months
Yeah.
before he passed away.
Okay. Now, Roland, who is the editor of the Monitor Guard News, interviewed Gus Aquila before he left to Florida. And he's going to show a few clips now. And after the meeting is adjourned, we are going to have some refreshments. Happy New Year. And if you like, he will run the whole video if anybody wants to stay and watch it. We can just stay and have refreshment.
While he's getting that together, I'd just like to compliment whoever put out that article in our newspaper that kind of summed up.
Thank you, Alan.
What
You're welcome.
happened.
Thank you, Bob.
What has happened, what happened with that last regime?
Yeah.
Let's not go to politics right now.
Okay, could you hit the lights, thanks. City College uptown, where I came from. His name was Pierman, Professor Pierman. He was in the education department at City College in the evening session.
Right.
And what was his first name? And Truly Hardy, who was a professor at City College also, started the MGTCC.
All right.
There was a spirit behind it.
Which stands for what?
The one who brought it.
Morningside Gardens
Tenants Cooperation.
Tenants
Cooperative Committee.
Cooperative Committee.
Right, and then it became MGCA.
That's right.
Like in the 80s.
Later.
Yeah.
Much later.
And let me interject here. It was the most fundamentally important thing that was done here, because it built up the force, that eventually became the group who was managing this place. In the meantime, we had, what do we call it, private or public manager?
We had
The management.
manager
The management.
from one of the big outfits in New York.
Like Century?
No.
Oh, this is way back.
Way back.
Yeah.
And the first manager we had, his name was, the memory is gonna fail me on a few things. But anyway, he was probably one of the best and most astute persons.
He eventually ended
Frank
up.
was his name. His last name, Frank. And they were all very pleased with him. But as a manager, he did a very good job, and he cooperated with the powers that be of the university and all the other institutions. But when we as a co-op decided to start filtering away from getting rid of as many of the public members who didn't live here,
Right.
they didn't appreciate what the needs were
Right.
and what we could do here to improve our living conditions. So besides, they had access to grant, because they had their own programs.
Right.
So eventually, little by little, we started to incorporate.
Here we are.
We started to incorporate the locals into our management. And that's when I got busy, because there were quite a few in different buildings interested in that.
And about 3 years later.
I had already been grooming myself to be somebody here because I got involved in so many things.
Yes.
We had a chorus, so I became Elmer was the first chairman of the chorus.
I don't know.
But we were leaders in this. The workshop we were leaders of.
Yeah, I was.
We had the Green Thumbs.
We started the workshop.
The Green Thumbs, and I became the chairman of that. Before you know it, I would never open my mouth that I wouldn't come being appointed to some committee. And sometimes I had conflict of interest because this committee wanted me and another committee wanted me. And I didn't know which one to get first.
Yeah.
And it went on like that. But I gained an awful lot of experience and know-how. I got to know the problems here from the bottom up.
Right, yeah.
And of course, I liked the people because they were all in the cooperative mood. Everybody wanted to contribute something to the co-op, and it was great.
Yeah.
So the feeling was so cooperative that all you have to do is mention, let's have a meeting on this or make a committee on the other thing, and it happened.
Right.
No problem.
Yeah.
Well, that spirit grew and grew for a long time, and we were very pleased with it. And the satisfaction of getting a good form was always the goal.
Right, yeah. I read a few things where it said that people here, the first cooperators weren't really trusting the people who were being elected to the board.
It's always difficult.
Yeah.
Because you don't know, you really don't know what the talents are that they have. You know that they're busy at certain industries or in certain corporations doing a certain kind of job.
Yeah.
But how they contribute to the co-op here and is something that needs time, dedication. They're willing to do it. They're willing to do it. not everybody is able to do all those things. You're prepared to serve with time and dedication and the love of it. So we have a few lousy members. There were some people who like the idea just for the luster of being able to say, I am the chairman, but and I belong to the board of directors of my housing corporation. Well, that's different.
Sounded good.
It sounds good.
Right.
It serves nobody but those people. Well, eventually, we tried to read out as many as we could. And luckily, the spirit was still strong, and they knew what the cooperative hope was, to have everybody making a contribution. And to realize that we're here to make it good for everybody, not for just a few.
Yeah.
And once that victory through, it yielded a lot of results. But as always, as it always happens, we're limited because sometimes the talents were very limited. The people who were handling business, handling the administration here, didn't have the knowledge, they didn't have the experience in the business sense of the job to do the job. And we fell short. So we eventually by trying and failing and succeeding sometimes, that's how we learn. Luckily, we were able to get some management organizations who did a fairly good job. It was worthy.
Right.
But the idea was for us to be able to be self. And sometimes we succeed in some.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Roland.
When was that?
That was 2010. This is summer. September 2010.
Okay. Oh, Sherry.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm back from work.
Are you ready to?
Yes, so I can very briefly, I'd like to thank the committee. We had 6 people on the committee.
Come here for a minute. Sherry, let me just. Sherry Kane is the chair of the Employee Fund Committee, and she wants to report to us on what they did in December 2012. Come over here, please.
I'm gonna have to run out of this. So, we had 6 people on the committee. We spent all of the reserve. We then found out we had 6 people who were not on the list. So we luckily got some more money in. So we waited till the last minute because the checks have to clear. So basically we gave out the checks on the 22nd, which is the last day. Normally we give them at the holiday party, but we wanted to make sure wanted to make sure that we had as much time to let all the checks clear. So we got between a third and a half, a little less than half, and a little more than a third of the cooperators, which is about par for the course. We usually get about a third of the people contributing. We got a little bit more this time, which is good. We gave out about $53,000. We got in about 40. So we had 20,000 reserves. So we've got about 8 that came in after the checks that wouldn't have had time to clear. So we gave them out as late as we could. People were chomping at the bit, but we got a pretty good showing this year, more than usual. We did get less than half, but more than a third. So that was.
Question? Comment?
What did, what did the person with the most time, what was like the average figures?
Well, it's always contingent upon how much money we get in. So we were able to, because we had a reserve from several years ago.
Big reserve.
Yeah. Okay, several years ago, we changed the bank as as well to Amalgamated Bank because the Citibank has a minimum, and they also were taking fees, including for, as I mentioned last year, deposits. So anyway, and there's some money some we were able to get back, and some we just were never able to get back. I went to the bank probably 6 or 8 times, and they essentially said, no, we're not going to give it back. So we closed that account out. We opened a new account at Amalgamated, which has a much lower minimum. So we were able to, we essentially spent the entire reserve and then spent more than that. So anyway, we have the people with the longest time this year got about $1,400. Yeah. So they were very happy because they got significantly more than they did last year. Hopefully people will be generous next year. We did warn them that it might not be, I mean, if we get a third, which is usually what we do, the amount will be significantly less next year, but it'll be what it'll be. So we did warn them and hope that we will be generous. We told the management to tell the employees. You know, because they've been getting more every year. They get more than they got in the last year, but this year, so next year, if we get a lot of people donating, then it might be the same, but it's unlikely. Because again, we only get usually a third of the people, and we use the reserve. So unless there's a significant increase in people contributing next year, we expect that it'll probably be a little less. But you know, we don't know. Maybe people will be very generous.
Question, comment? Okay, Shelley just walked in from work now. Go ahead, Lottie.
No, I must say I'm disappointed that only 30% participated. Is that the common?
Yes. This year it was almost half, which is much more than in the past. The last few years it's been about a third. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to do. You know, we put
send out a letter to everybody.
Well, we post, you know, flyers for everybody, right? We start right after the right after Halloween. We start right after Halloween. So we start, you know, at the beginning of November, because essentially we have to wait until, I mean, one of the reasons we waited until the very last minute was that we have to wait until the checks clear. So any checks that we get on the 22nd, you know, you have to wait 3 or 4 days before those are going to clear. So if people are, you know, again, all the money goes to the employees. If there's money that comes in after the checks have been given out, which is like right before Christmas, we put that in the bank for the next year. If you absolutely want your money to be in this year's, just give it to us earlier. I mean, you know, if we get the money, I got $100 today. So, you know, if people want to make absolutely sure that their money is going to be given to the employees, they will always be given to the employees, right? And we take care of people who left or have been laid off. We still give them money if they were there sometime this last year. Okay, so it's not that if people are not there, you know, we don't consider them. So, but you know, we start in early November. So the earlier people can get their checks to us, the easier it is for us, because we do have to put it in the bank and let it clear. And we certainly, I mean, I literally went to the bank and said, when will we have $53,000 that will clear? And they said, not until Friday. So I wasn't obviously going to put give them the checks until I was sure it was going to clear, because after they get the checks, they go directly to the bank. So, you know, if people can give earlier, that's just easier on everybody. But, you know, again, people were very good.
Some special appeal, something like.
Well, I think people were, and I did let them know that this year, because people were, you know, they did such an outstanding job for the hurricane, people were very, you know, appreciative of that. We did let them know that. They did appreciate that sentiment. So, and part of it is, we, you know, we didn't get there were people missing on the original list that we noticed, and then we went back and we made sure, and there were a couple of other people that we didn't notice, who there were a couple of people who were kind of watching out to make sure that, you know, didn't happen. So we were able to make sure everybody got their checks, but yes.
Would you be comfortable indicating what the range of gifts was?
Well, people who are here for the least.
No, I don't mean that way, but in terms of what was given.
So we have, it's very, I mean, we get people who give us $5 or $8, and then we get people who give us $500. So, I mean, it's very varied. There are usually, I'd say the average amount people give is either 100 or 250 is probably the most common. But, you know, we get everything from, and sometimes it's, I think there are a couple of people who have done, you know, figure out what their maintenance is, because they give us something with change, and, you know, $16.42. I know it's like very strange amount of money we've got in some cases, but for the most part. Right. So, you know, but I think the least amount, I mean, we've gotten, you know, people give us $5 or $10, and that's fine. I mean, you know, it's the idea is that part of it is because we pool it, it makes it much easier. You know, there was, you know, some number of people asked whether we should just give cash. First of all, we have $40,000 or $50,000 in cash, so that is out of the question unless someone would like to deal with $50,000 in cash, and it's not going to be me. Okay, but what they used to do in my old building is give us a list of employees, and everyone was responsible for taking care of paying them themselves, which means what that ends up meaning is that it puts the onus on the cooperator, that you have to run around and give money to everybody. And the second thing is people are not going to get, there are going to be people who won't get anything, right? I mean, right now we do it by seniority. We give the people who have been there even a month or 2 months, we make sure we give them something that's substantial.
I just had a thought that maybe this year, I don't think it's ever been done, usually the flyers just go up, but because I know you worked hard to pay down use up the reserve, maybe it would be possible to have the first thing go out be a letter, you know, written to the shareholders, you know, dear shareholder, and have it actually put under everyone's door. And then after that, put up the signs, because probably a lot of people don't even pay attention, and maybe, you know, there are a lot of people that don't know that you've used up a lot of the reserve, so.
Okay, I mean, the flyers do go underneath that. I mean, we can certainly.
But I mean, make it a personal letter, you know, like when you get in the mail from, you know, Meals on Wheels kind of thing, you know, and just let them know, more than just the employee, you know, the flyers, just to do something different.
I mean, we could certainly let people know that essentially that, you know, we appreciate everyone. I mean, we don't want to, it's certainly voluntary. We don't want to make anyone feel badly. There have been a number of people who wanted us to write the names out. But we don't want to do that.
No, just
not the amounts, but just like I mean, MRHS does that, right? They put down who contributed, but then that would be very.
We
just don't feel
know
that's
how it works and what our intention is, you know, how we're going to deal with a lot of, you know, we have a lot of employees. And,
right.
You know, and that it's voluntary, so it's much easier to have this one group that handles it.
Right, I mean, that way we at least make sure that everyone gets something, no matter how long they've been. We do it by seniority, and we have 55 people here. If people were responsible for giving, okay, right, we have 55 people, and so if we were to give, if everyone had to go around and give those 55 people, there would be, I believe, a number of people who would not get it.
Okay, one more question.
I just would say, if you decide to do, as we suggested, a personal letter, it's probably worth the investment of an envelope that's addressed to the management office, because I think that helps people, it makes it easy to stick the money in
you to like a return envelope?
Yeah, so people know where it goes, and then they just have that envelope, and it's just an inspiration to fill in.
Okay? Thank you, Sheriff, for making it.
All right.
Thank you.
So, and I would, again, if you see people, I would just like people to know that people were more generous, that even though we get only a third, which is unfortunate, this year we actually got almost a half, which is still, one would hope we would get more, but, you know, that's better than we did in the past. So please let people know that you know, we are grateful, and the employees were very pleased, and, you know, we did let them know that we felt very, you know, we appreciate their work, and that we especially appreciated their help during the storm.
Thank you.
Say anything, but you said now.
We would say happy holidays, and then I told the management, I told the people in the office to tell, because they give them out.
Oh,
Because usually we give them out at the holiday party, but the holiday party again is in the middle, well, this year it was the beginning of December, so there was, and we weren't even told when it was, so it would have been much, much too early. By the time we gave it to them, basically we gave it to the management company because it was literally the last day before the holiday. So we gave it to the management, and they gave it to anybody who was working, and then they call anybody who's not working to see if they want to come pick it up, or they mail it. And anybody who's on vacation, it gets mailed. So they take care of it. They've always done that.
Thank you, Sheriff, so much.
All right.
Okay, there is one other item on the agenda, but before I go there, I'd like to introduce all of you to new shareholders.
My name is Ulrich Rauter. I live here in Building 2 MC.
Welcome. Thank you.
I'm Jeff Edelson, Building 111B.
Welcome. Okay, I'm not going to say much. It's just Ben Lingman is going to give you a very short update on the Community Relations Committee. And then if there are any building reports, or if you want, we'll adjourn and everybody can begin to eat. Go ahead.
Thank you for having me present just before the food. I know everybody's attention not on.
But you know, you're in right time.
So the Community Relations Committee had an open invitation for December 3rd, and had 5 people who attended other than Tova and myself. So that was the 7. We had a very good discussion on some of the possibilities of things that we could work on, ranging from the possibility, I'm not sure how imminent this is, but there have been articles written and discussions about possibly landmarking areas in our neighborhood, and there are yings and yangs to that, positives and negatives to that, so that was put on the table as an issue that we should be aware of. So large things like that, as well as deliberately including and inviting the large entities that are large institutions that are in our neighborhood, Columbia obviously being one of them, but Jewish Theological Seminary, Manhattan School for Music, and Barnard, and all of the large City College to our north. So large institutions should be aware of what we're doing, who we are as a community, and should be included in things going on. Large things like that were put on the table, as well as smaller things like planting trees. There's a lot of conversation about, and we're doing a lot here on our own block of planting and gardening. But across the street in Grants, there was a lot of destruction that happened over the course of several storms. Yes. And there was a realization maybe there's something that we can do to help there, as well as on the streets of Amsterdam, going up to City College. So there's an awareness that we have some knowledge and skills and some experience that maybe we can share with the neighborhood, as well as, again, as I mentioned at the last time I presented, the objective is to reach out, but also to pull in information about what's going on. So I thought that there was a really good conversation on December 3rd. Our next meeting is on January 10th, and we concluded that this first meeting was really, we didn't establish any particular theme or project that we're working on, other than just starting to have some ideas trickle through and kind of feel what's going to be right for the group. But we urged everybody to go out and do two things. One, try to ascertain who is it in the community that we should be in touch with. Not just Columbia University is somewhat of a large place. We may want to start to identify who or what department at Columbia University. So just to start to bring in that type of information, as well as start to pull in other people. So I will do my share right now and urge everyone here to join us, or anyone here to join us on January 10th. It's here, right?
Yes, it's here. And I have like just a few copies here of when we are going to have meeting January, February, March, and April. So if anyone would like to join us,
yeah, so if you're not able to,
copies.
just speak to other people who you know are community-minded. One of the things that we did identify is there are probably people within our community that are either part of or go to meetings like the Community Board 9.
I think we have a member of the community board now, right? Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, okay.
Right
so-
here we have, maybe you want to come to our CRC meetings.
So
Here you are, here are the dates. That will be wonderful having you.
Okay.
No, that, oh, well.
But if you
That's
knew of
one-
other people, but
that's
that's
one
exactly
thing
the
I
type of.
couldn't take in consideration when we set the dates, I'm sorry.
Those are exactly the types of connections that even if someone doesn't attend the meeting, we would like them to know what we're doing. We'd like to know, maybe they can kind of, by word of mouth, or just do a little report on what's going on in the community organizations that they are involved with. There's a tremendous amount of strength that we have here, and it often simply gets dissipated because of our lives that are all individually very busy. So I think the community relations is a place where we can try to channel that information and knowledge together and figure out a way to disseminate it out. Any questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you working in cooperation with Columbia University?
We are going to.
I went to school there. Well, yeah, I think the objective is that any entity in our midst is one that we should be in contact with, and that was clearly discussed in our December meeting, and I think it's going to kind of take shape as we go along, and I'm not sure what that shape is going to be, but they should be, you know, in years past, the Community Relations Committee has had Columbia University present on, you know, Columbia University does not only exist for the new campus that they're building. They are a tremendous organization that does other things than build here on the acres on 133rd Street. But the Community Relations Committee of the past has invited them a couple of times, and they have presented. You know, there's been some consternation about what they're doing and some support about what they're doing, but they have presented in the past, as have people that have been concerned about the development of the acreage to our north. So I think one of the things, and I think that kind of touches upon what the value of community relations can be, is simply air out the real issues that are going on. It's not there to make decisions or to create any, have a philosophy, other than bring in information, what's going on in our neighborhood, and then get that information out to each other. So Columbia, as is the community, as is the nursery school, which I don't remember the name of, my children went there, CLC. You know, large and small are equally important to us.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Now you have okay, if it's okay, unless somebody has something to report about the building or any other issue, we will, yes, go ahead.
Building 5 has is not happy to advertise, but has had difficulties with bedbug infestation. And I think one of the learnings has been that there can be repeated outbreaks unless careful work is done to make it known, even though people are not too happy about that, We learned, for example, that after a couple of treatments, there were still people who had had problems, were embarrassed or annoyed or whatever, but called in their own company to exterminate, but only treated their own apartment. And what happens is that these little critters apparently go under the door of the apartment across the way and into the walls of the apartment above or below. And so it can be made known that this is something that we suffer, not because necessarily of any lack of our own, probably not, but that it is a community problem. And the more we share the information, the more quickly it can be eradicated.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. So excellent point, yeah. Because you really need professionals to deal with it. And we had a big infestation in Building 4 like 4 years ago. And we brought professionals. There are dogs that can sniff it out. We had dogs going through the apartment up, below, above and below, and on the side and across. And the apartment was cleaned very carefully. So if you get an infestation, we know it's floating in the yard. Please don't hide it under the mattress. That's
where they are.
That's where they are. So don't hide under the mattress. Please contact the management right away so they can bring the professional in before it gets out of hand. Any more comments? Okay, the meeting is adjourned and everybody can have some snacks.
I think we should
publicize
that we have refreshments. In order to get more
When?
people to come to these meetings.
Yeah, because I gotta say, that's the good one.
Yes.
And you connect it, blend it. Well, I moved in.